And welcome to my Sunday morning Facebook chat. I'm in Metcalf and I welcome you today. We're again talking about plastics. It seems it is everywhere. And the more I read about it, the more I want to know more. Where is it? Where in our food chain, on the earth, in the water, on our land? Um, and it seems to be everywhere. So we have choices to make. And that's why I'm talking to you about this today. I discovered that tea bags have some plastic to seal them. And why choose wooden cutting boards over plastic? And the history of plastics, 1960, Celoplast, the Swedish company, figured out how to make bags using thin film polyethylene. And by 1965, one of their employers, Gustav Tulensden, had perfected the process. Plastic bags are difficult and costly to recycle, and most end up on landfill sites where they take around 300 years to photodegrade. That's if they're on the surface being hit by the sun. They break down into tiny toxic particles, contaminate the soil and the waterways, and enter our food chain when the animals accidentally ingest them. Not to mention the microplastics that are in the ocean that the fish consume. Now, apparently less than 1% are recycled. That's terrible. They are most often made from polyethylene that takes centuries to degrade, according to one source. And in 2019, the Food Packaging Forum, a Swiss based not for profit, focused on the science behind food packaging and compiled a database of more than 900 chemicals likely associated with plastic food packaging production worldwide, and another 3,400 possibly used. Of those 4,300 chemicals, 60% did not have any available hazard data, is what the research found. And so cutting boards, why wood and not plastic? Well, this I found it was published in a peer-reviewed journal, Ecotoxicology and Public Health. Scientists tested contamination by cutting carrots on two types of plastic cutting boards, one made with polypropylene and the other with polyethylene, both which come from oil. And their goal was to estimate the total per person annual exposure to microplastics from using these boards. They measured as many as 1,114 microplastic particles, pieces of plastic less than 5 millimeters long each time the board was used to cut carrots. The researchers, led by scientists from the University of North Dakota, also found that cutting carrots on a plastic board can generate as much as 15 milligrams of microplastic per cut, or about 50 grams per year, roughly equivalent to the weight of 10 plastic credit cards. I don't think I want to ingest that much plastic. The amounts vary depending on the cutting style of the cook, the sharpness of the knife, and the type of food being cut. Tomatoes wouldn't be nearly so much because it's a different chopping mechanism. Scientists estimated that a cutting board sees about 500 chops a day. This is average, but this will vary with the meal being prepared. Cooking a meal can involve many different steps, and that not every bit of microplastic that's generated find its way into the final product. So just be aware of that. Even though wood is harder to sanitize and you can't put it in the dishwasher, wood is naturally antimicrobial, whereas the gouges and the crevices that happen when you're cutting on a plastic board offer plenty of spaces for bacteria to hide. With wood, there are still lots of crevices, but those crevices are deeper, meaning that the bacteria fall in and eventually die, and they don't come into contact with more food, where the plastic grooves can harbor bacteria. And so the wood traps them and kills them, and the plastic just has them sit there. And depending on what you're chopping on that plastic board, um, releasing plastics from the board itself. And this can happen as quickly as 3 to 10 minutes after the surface of the board being contaminated with harmful bacteria. Now, through greasy substances like chicken fat, it can remain on the surface of the board and continue to be a food safety risk for many hours. Washing in warm, soapy water apparently was sufficient to remove the harmful grease-borne bacteria. My suggestion is why not have separate boards for your meat and chicken and your vegetables, and perhaps one for fruit? A thorough cleaning is always a must. Now, the best wood for cutting boards are maple, walnut, cherry, and beech. And you may have noticed these are all hardwoods. And that's because hardwood boards are tough. They can handle continued impact from your knives with minimal damage to the board or the blade. The issue of microplastics in our bodies and all over the earth, land, and water, it's an issue. It's huge. And they're not, these microplastics aren't confined to just water bottles. They are stealthily making their way into our food supply, creating a web of potential health concerns. The ubiquity of plastics on agricultural land and their incorporation into the food we eat is a reality we can no longer ignore. And a 22 report from Medical News Today reveals that an assortment of chemicals like stabilizers, lubricants, fillers, and plasticizers is a key contributor to the microplastics infiltrating our food. Which food contains microplastics? Well, your common culprits include single-use water bottles, to-go food takeout containers, food cans, storage wraps. Every item that makes up a significant portion of plastic-based food packaging. The type of plastic packaging used, along with factors like heating food in plastic, no, and extended storage times, influences the migration of microplastics and their potentially harmful chemicals into our diet. And what do these microplastics do? One, they're disrupting the hormones in our body, and that causes a lot of issues. And we've got behavioral issues. You've got girls developing um, at the age of 8 and 9 into womanhood when it used to be like 13, 14. You've got increased risk of chronic disease, and it impairs the immune health. Now, here are 5 practical tips to avoid microplastic in your diet. 1, limit highly processed food. Just don't buy them anymore. And that sends a message as a consumer to the food industry. Choose eco-friendly packaging and be aware. I bought some, they were potato chips in a crinkly, the aluminum packaging that chips are, you can buy them in. And it said compostable. Well, in British Columbia, it is not, because our compost systems don't get hot enough. And when people like Metro Vancouver say that they want zero waste, then they need to upgrade the whole composting system. Use glass or stainless steel in your water bottles and other containers. And number 4 is where I heard about avoid tea bags and use loose tea instead. And believe it or not, the humble tea bag often contains a non-biodegradable plastic called polypropylene, which releases billions of microplastic particles every time you brew a cuppa. And I think Tetley tea has said yes, it's like a less than 1%, and they use it to seal the tea bags. And most teas are packaged in paper tea bags. Some higher end brands have switched to plastic made from PET, polyethylene terephthalate, the material used in plastic drink bottles or nylon. And avoid food packed in plastic bags. And it seems more and more it's almost impossible. So buy the bulk apples, buy the bulk little mini cucumbers. Avoid buying food that are already packaged in plastic. That's your choice. And so, try and keep that plastic out of your food as much as possible. So, given all these unknowns, along with the catastrophic environmental impact of our addiction to plastic, here are some tips. We've already mentioned these, and avoid heat, including the microwave. Never heat anything plastic in the microwave. And it says including the dishwasher because the heat in the dishwasher is doing something to the plastic. And if you've ever put a plastic container in the top rack of your dishwasher, like I have, and you take it out, and some plastic containers, food containers, are same shape, and others are this warped thing that is no longer resembles the shape you bought the food in. So now plastic doesn't last forever. I mean, it does. It's got these chemicals that make you think it does. Avoid scratched and discolored plastic, and pay attention to the expiration dates on the products, such as SodaStream bottles, which I was not aware of. Don't store fatty or oily food in plastic. Many chemicals used in plastic are fat soluble and are more likely to leach into fatty food. Interesting. Cut down on plastic water bottles, which contribute to the widespread ingestion of microplastics. And consider replacing a plastic wrap with a reusable option, like a beeswax wrap. That just feels a bit more natural, and it doesn't have that snug as a bug plastic thing. But it forms over bowls and things. I've used it, and the heat of your hands can help seal. And your food isn't going to be in the fridge for that long anyway. And we don't want leftovers in the fridge for more than a day or two. So, by you making informed choices and adopting practices that minimize exposure, we can contribute not only to our own well being, but to the larger discourse on sustainable living in the face of plastic pollution. So, have a beautiful day, everyone. Enjoy your whole fresh food, and just much love to all of you. Blessings, and just have a wonderful day and have a wonderful week.